Hello, and welcome to Developing Java Server Pages using Eclipse and Tomcat. My name is Kevin Flanagan with Odin Technologies.
The unauthorized reproduction or distribution of this copyrighted work is illegal. Criminal copyright infringement, including infringement without monetary gain, is investigated by the FBI and is punishable by up to 5 years in federal prison and a fine of $250,000.
Today I'm going to teach you about JSPs, and we'll take a look at what's going to be covered in this course. We're going to talk about what JSPs are and how to develop them. That's going to be a fairly significant undertaking, but the first thing we'll have to say is that JSPs really are an attempt to simplify servlets. We're going to see also how to use JavaBeans in JSPs. Okay, JavaBeans are going to be used primarily as data buckets. When I say data buckets, what I mean is that we will use JavaBeans to transfer pieces of data from one component in our web application to another. We're also going to take a look at the use of custom tag libraries, or CTLs. Custom tag libraries are an additional way of simplifying JSPs. We'll see that the first pass of JSPs was an attempt to simplify the writing of servlets. And probably that would not be the most accepted definition, but that really was a fallout, an unintended consequence to a degree. The real reason for doing it was to try to separate the presentation of logic, in other words, the request processing and the response processing, so that we did not have to write an awful lot of code into our servlet. Okay? Custom tag libraries took that concept a little bit further to try to further move the knowledge of Java code away from the folks who might be writing the HTML. Lots of times the people that did the presentation piece were not programmers. They might not know Java. So there always was a slight overlap. It wasn't a clean separation of Java from the presentation. And that's what custom tag libraries try to resolve. All of this will be done on the Java EE platform. Java EE is Java Enterprise Edition. We will be dealing particularly with issues of JSPs and servlets, because we'll see what a JSP actually becomes is a servlet. We will not be discussing other components of Java EE, such as EJBs, Enterprise JavaBeans. That's beyond the scope of this course. Okay. There will be hands-on labs throughout the course, and the hands-on labs will use Eclipse as the IDE, the integrated development environment, and Tomcat as the servlet container. Okay, when you've completed this course, you'll be able to build JSPs according to the current JSP specification, utilize the custom tag libraries that we just mentioned to extend JSPs, and use JavaBeans to hold and pass data to other components within the web app. In terms of course prerequisites, this course is designed for people who have experience with the Java language using Java SE, Java Standard Edition. The reason that this is really a requirement is that we are talking about issues of Java code, so the ability to navigate in Java code is critical to what we're going to be doing in the course. When we mention SE here, although servlets, JSPs, or Java EE, what we're really doing is saying the background that people should have would be background that relates specifically to introductory Java, how to create a class, how one class might extend another, how do you implement interfaces, how do you compile Java code, and other issues such as being familiar, having some familiarity with object-oriented programming, particularly in the idea of generalization and abstraction, which is really the starting point for object-oriented programming, or OOP. Also, we will assume that everyone is familiar with PI, polymorphism, inheritance, and encapsulation. Also, actually having developed servlets is a very, very good place to start. Now, again, these are recommended prerequisites. They will certainly make the course much more easy to understand. But if we say developing servlets, what that means is that we've already come up against the idea of what a servlet is. And again, a servlet is a piece of Java code that must implement the servlet interface. The problem with implementing the interface is a traditional Java problem, is that we have to override every method in the interface. So our first pass might be to look for some class that already implements the servlet interface. And the first place we encounter it in servlets is with the generic servlet. So we would only have to extend the generic servlet and then overwrite or override the particular methods we're interested in. The problem with the generic servlet is that it is not optimized for any particular protocol. And more often than not, the protocol that we're going to be using is HTTP. So probably our starting point would be the HTTP servlet, which in turn extends the generic servlet, but it is optimized for the HTTP protocol. Okay. And lastly, some exposure to using Eclipse as the development platform, our Java development platform. We're going to be using Eclipse as we develop JSPs, but we could have easily developed servlets on Eclipse. We could have developed regular Java SE applications, command line applications on Eclipse also. And Tomcat will be our servlet container, or web server, but we'll call it the servlet container, which is really probably the most appropriate term. Tomcat understands servlets and JSPs. It does not understand EJBs. We could also use other servlet containers such as WebLogic or WebSphere to run servlets. The choice for this platform for servlets and for JSPs is Tomcat. Okay, the topics, the detailed topics that we will cover in this course are first and foremost the introduction to Java server pages themselves. What are they? What benefits do they provide to us? Why do they exist? What issues do they address? What's the history of Java server pages? Also, we want to look at how to actually code the JSP. Once we've talked about the theoretical or the philosophical underpinnings of JSPs, then we'll actually look at how to code one. We will code the JSP, we'll have a lab on it, and we will have a working demo. Then we'll take a look at directives. Once we've done the first part about coding the JSP, we need to look in more detail to say, well, what kind of things can a JSP do from the Java perspective? For example, can I include, or import rather, can I import certain packages? Can I extend another class? So there's going to be a variety of issues with directives. Can I code something that will evaluate to a particular value? If I have an HTML page that someone fills in, is there a way for me to get at the request information that comes with the request object into the servlet? File inclusion allows us to take a modular approach to the development of JSPs. And by modular, I mean this. Rather than coding one giant JSP that does several functions, we may want to code a particular JSP for each function and have them included in a modular format in the same way that we might have coded other applications with discrete functionality. We'll also look at the XML syntax variant for how to specify within our JSP what Java is supposed to do. So we're going to have, right off the bat, two different ways of doing this. We can do it as pure XML within the HTML, or we can use special constructs from JSP itself. The third type of language we will look at is the JSP expression language, which came out in one of the earlier releases, back a JSP 2.0 spec, to enable us to have a slightly different way or a simplified way. And the term that's used now is a unified expression language. In other words, trying to use the same language that something like JSTL, which is Java Standard Tag Libraries, and JSF, Java Server Faces, use. We need to take a look at JavaBeans because that will be our primary data holder. And we've used the term a couple of times, data bucket. That's really what JavaBeans are going to be. How do we pass data from one component in our web app to another? And then we'll start to look at custom tag libraries and what do they do for us? How do they further simplify the development of JSPs? We need to take a look at advanced custom tag libraries. Our first pass, the introduction to custom tag libraries, is to get a handle on what custom tag libraries are about. What do they look like? What's their structure? But there are more nuanced features that we will discuss in the advanced CTL session. And lastly, we want to look at a tag body. Is there a way of trying to hide the code as much as possible from the developer who's handling the presentation layer? So those are the pieces that we're going to look at in this course. Now, we will have labs throughout the course. So if you would like to follow along with the hands-on exercises we'll be doing, please be sure that your hardware meets the specifications listed in the downloadable setup instructions. And download the software and this will be included as a hyperlink within the instructions at Eclipse and Tomcat. Basically, there's three components we're going to need. Three we'll need. We need Java, we need Eclipse, and we need Tomcat. But when we download Eclipse, we will get Java with it. So we really should only have to do two downloads. The configuration is explicitly done in the downloadable files. It will be noted what the options are that we need to do. Then, once we've installed Tomcat and Eclipse, we need to associate Tomcat with Eclipse as our chosen servlet container. Those instructions will also be included in the downloadable files. Okay. To download these labs and the instructions, click on the paperclip. If you have questions, any point you want to ask a question of me, just go to the question comment box that we're seeing right here on this slide and fill in your question, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And again, thank you for joining me for this class. And that concludes the end of our course introduction.